Today we are covering patient triage. My name is Libby and I'm an implementation specialist here at accuRx. And I also have my colleague Chloe, who's going to be helping out and answering questions in today's webinar. So thanks for joining us. Today, I just wanted to let you know before we get started, this webinar will be recorded and we will go ahead and email it out to all of the attendees. Today, we will cover first how to unlock your unique practice link to your online triage form. So when I say your unique practice link, that is the link that your patients will be able to use to fill out their patient triage form. And you'll post this link on your practice website, or you can also text it out to your patients. After we do that, we'll focus on the patient triage from a patient's perspective. So we'll go through what the form looks like as a patient. And then after that, we'll follow out how to manage that triage request as it comes into your practice inbox, which is this little icon here on your accuRx toolbar. After that, we'll go ahead and talk about how you can get started with this and roll it out across your practice to share across your team and your patients. So I'll go ahead and get started. Today, I chose EMIS as my clinical system, but just wanted to let you know that it works exactly the same with System 1. I just happened to choose EMIS today. So my setup is here. I have myself as a patient here pulled up in EMIS, and then I have my accuRx toolbar here in green. To find your unique practice link, you'll start with your initials here and click on Manage Practice. Once you click on Manage Practice, it opens up a new window in your internet browser, and you'll scroll down to the patient triage section. Once you're there, you can click on Getting Started. So getting started, this section, for myself, I've already populated my unique link. If you have not used patient triage yet in your practice, you will see a blue button here that says Get Started. And just to let you know, you do have to be an admin to be able to unlock this link. So I'll go ahead and click on this and we can take a look at what this looks like as a patient filling out the form. So first thing you'll notice at the top, we have the practice information. Today I'm in a test account, so my practice is accuRx practice, but this will be your practice's information here. Next thing is this yellow box. So this is letting our patients know how long it will take to respond to this query. So this is customizable, and I'll be going over that in the settings section of today's webinar. The default is 2 working days, but here we changed it to 3, just to set expectations for your patients. Then we ask the patients what they would like help with. Is it an admin query? Is it a medical issue or online advice? So in this case, we can go ahead and click on medical issue and see what that looks like from the patient side. First thing we see nice and red here at the top, do not use this form for any medical emergencies as your request will not be seen immediately. So here we're just trying to make sure they only use this form for routine requests. And we ask that they please confirm that they don't have any of the symptoms below. If they do click yes, let's take a look at what that looks like. We tell them to please seek urgent medical advice, call 111 for advice, or 999 if you need an ambulance. And we also let them know that the GP practice will not be notified that you received this advice. So in order to progress with the form here, we do have to select no, I do not have any of these urgent symptoms. Next screen is a coronavirus screening. So for this, the patient is just going to mark yes or no, and just will be more added information that you'll see on your end. But the patient will still be able to submit the form regardless of what they select on the screen. Next screen is going to ask about the medical issue in detail. So all of these boxes here are free text responses. The first one we see is please describe the medical problem. We also let them know here, if you are filling this in on behalf of someone else, please make that clear. So for myself, I'll go ahead and write, I'm having a new rash, for example. And then we give the patients a chance to submit some photos here. They can submit up to 5 photos. So if I click attach a photo, We do want them to confirm to these terms. We let them know that the male or female practice staff may see the photo, and the practice may save the photo to the medical record. Next, we give them some tips on taking a good photo, and they can click upload from here. So I've got some test photos here. I've got this one of a rash, and I can click continue to get back to the form. Next box is how long have these symptoms or concerns been going on? Have they got better or worse? Next box is optional. Is there anything you are particularly worried about? Finally, how would you like us to help? Maybe they would like a cream to see if that rash can go away. Finally, please enter any times during opening hours when we cannot contact you. So again, this is optional, but trying to reduce the amount of times you're going back and forth trying to contact your patient. So again, this is when they would not like to be contacted. Next screen, the patient will fill out their patient details. So this is going to help us match the patient so that when it comes into your practice inbox, they come in as a matched patient. And what we do is we verify their details that they enter here along with the NHS sign. And then we also do a second verification here with the phone number, just to confirm that the patient that is filling this form out is also the patient that has access to the phone number. So similar to the two-factor authentication that you may see in online banking. So for myself and for you as a practice, if you're following along today, you can definitely put in just test patient information. So I'll put that in here and we can take a look at this from the practice management side. All right, so once I put in my phone number, we do have a pop-up that asks if I have access to this phone at the moment. So I'm going to click yes. Once I click continue, I will wait just a couple minutes here and see if I get a text to confirm my identity. All right, I've gotten my code, going to enter it in. Okay, so now we can take a look at this request, everything I've entered in so far, and then we ask, how should we contact you as a practice? We do let them know that we try to follow our patient's preferences, but may not be possible. Also give them an option down here to speak with a particular person. Again, noting that we can't guarantee it, but just as an option for your patients. And then finally, we give them an option to receive a confirmation text for this request. So that's always nice for the patient, something to hold on to that their request was received by your practice. And that's it from the patient side of things. So finally, we tell them that their request has been submitted. They'll receive a confirmation text if they opted in for that. And then we tell them what happens next. So this section here is also customizable, which we would do in settings for patient triage, just letting the patient know exactly how long it'll take to respond. For now, we have 3 working days. And then finally, at the bottom, we have a survey that the patient can fill out, just letting your practice know how easy the form was to fill out. If you are a practice where your CCG has purchased patient triage on your behalf, then your CCG will have access to that survey result. All right, so that's pretty much it from the patient side of things. So right now, what I'd like to do is talk about how we manage this from the practice perspective. So I'll go ahead and jump back into EMIS here, and I'm looking at my accuRx toolbar here on the right. So all of the patient triage requests come into the inbox here. Click on that. This opens up a new window, and all of the requests come into this folder on the left, the to assign folder. So I can see that I have a few new requests here. This is the one I just submitted. It's coming up as patient not found, as I mentioned, because I did just put in my own information there. So if we click on that request, We can see it comes in exactly as the patient wrote it, and here's our photo. So first, we can look at matching this patient. When I click on search for patient, this will give you the patient who you have open, which is myself in EMIS. If that's not the patient you're looking for, then you can also search for a patient by first name, last name, or NHS phone number. So I'll click on myself and click confirm. We'll just double check that that is the patient we're wanting to match to. And this turns blue and matches that up. So from here, we can take a look at our request. As I mentioned, this is in the patient's own words, and you can go ahead and click Save to Record. So in the case that you don't want to save the photo, maybe you click on the photo and it's something you wouldn't want to save to a record. Let's take a look at what that looks like. If you don't want to save it, you can click this icon here and choose why you would not like to save the photo. You can also unclick this box that says Include Attachments and click Save to Record. If you want to include the photo, go ahead and just click Save to Record. And that will be updated and searchable for future in the patient's clinical system. And as you'll notice here in green, you can see pretty well who's doing what with each response as they come in. So myself, Libby and Mari, nice in green there that I matched the conversation to the patient and the date and time there. So if we're looking at this request and we see that this is urgent, we can go ahead and click Mark Urgent. That will turn this red and put it to the top of this incoming request box. Two other things you can do down here is you can reply to the patient, add a note, or click Assign. So first, this should look familiar if you have attended our other webinar, our fundamentals webinar, or used messaging with your patients. But this is how you can reply. This is a free text area, so I can type in anything I like here. And from here, I can go ahead and send directly back to the patient. I can also attach anything, a document from the desktop or from the clinical system if I did have documents attached to this patient's file in the clinical system. I can also check this box down here to allow the patient to respond with a text or photo. And important to note that if you do click this box, it allows the patient to respond just one time with a text or photo. You can also make use of your templates. So if you click on this option here, it will bring up the accuRx templates and any other templates that you've made for your practice. So the thinking here is that there may be a lot of requests that you may be getting where a template would be really nice to use for maybe signposting or just quick responses. So for example, we've got one down here, video consultation tomorrow. So this will be a good way for your practice to kind of save time instead of individually responding and just make a pre-written text response. Next thing you can do is click Add Note. And important to note here for the notes that these are just internal. So if you do click Save to Record, it's not going to save the internal notes as they're just for the people in practice. Why you might want to use this functionality for patient triage is kind of the way we're thinking about it is we would have your reception team monitoring the to assign inbox and monitoring the triage requests as they come in, just like they would answer the phone lines as patients try to contact the practice. So you may have a reception team with maybe 2 to 3 individuals working on these requests. So a good way for them to contact each other would to say, Libby is working on this request. And when I click Add Note, you can see that updates in the thread here, and then it also updates on the left here in the to assign, preventing another person from popping into that request and trying to action it. Finally, we can see the assign option. So for now, we are in the to assign folder. If we click this arrow here, we can assign this either to an individual in the practice, or if we scroll down on our menu, we've got the teams at the bottom. So say I wanted to assign it to the doctor's team, I can do that. Also, this box is searchable. So if you have the team in mind, you can go ahead and search for that. and choose the doctor's team. Once I click assign, it lets us know that this conversation has now moved to the doctor's inbox. So it's now removed from the to assign inbox, and we can follow this if we click on Teams and go to the doctor's team. So one thing to note here is how to manage the notifications. So for myself, I'm not a member of the doctor's team, so I don't have my notifications on. So that is something that we'll cover just in a few minutes here on how you can set this up for your practice. But you can also manage this on an individual level. So for myself, on the to assign folder, I do have my notifications on, so you can see that I'm receiving these red notifications for all incoming patient triage requests. If I go to the doctor's level team and I'd like to be notified, I can click these notifications on as an individual. So now we can see that my request has moved in from patient triage in the to assign folder into the doctor's team. So for now, I can go ahead and click done. And I'm done with this request after I've actioned it. If you're worried about losing any requests, you can always go into the all folder here, which covers everything in the practice. So these are everything, all the messages that are open in the practice and anything that has marked done. So that is the request that I just marked done. I can always go ahead and click reopen if I would like to. We can also look at all open patient triage requests by clicking on patient triage. So if you're, for example, looking for a request that has been assigned to another team and wanted to follow up on it, you can kind of see on a practice level how you're doing with your patient triage requests. So that is pretty much it on the inbox side of things. So what I'd like to do now is kind of talk about how we can customize this to our own practice needs. And you would do that on the patient triage settings. So I'll go ahead and click on my initials, go to manage practice, and scroll down to the patient triage section and click settings. So the first set is talking about that form that we filled out on the patient side. So the first one was our welcome page. We have the yellow text at the top. So if you click edit, you have this opportunity to communicate with your patient on how many days you'll take to respond. That's one option. The second option is on the submission page. So this is letting the patients know after they submitted their request, what happens next. And then finally, the SMS message confirmation that the patient can opt for. You can customize that as well, right there. Next thing I wanted to cover is redirecting their patients to an existing repeat prescription service. So basically the thought is here that if you already have an existing repeat prescription service that's working well, then we can redirect patients to that instead of submitting it through patient triage. So for myself, I've already got this toggled on in green. And I can see that I'm redirecting the patients to the NHS website, the NHS app here. So for yourself, you'll go ahead and pop in your link for the service that you use, and then you can select the text option for what that looks like from the patient side of things. So let's take a look at if they do opt for that admin request, what they'll see here. So for that, you would click on your initials, manage practice, scroll down to patient triage, getting started, and find your link. So as a patient, if they did want to submit a repeat prescription request, they would click on admin query. Click on no, I do not have any of these symptoms, so they can progress with the form. And then click on repeat prescription. So as of right now, we give them this blue box that says, did you know your practice has a repeat prescription service? If you're registered with NHS app or would like to be, please request a repeat prescription here. If you are not registered and would prefer to use this form, please continue. So we don't prevent them from submitting a request here, but we do try to drive them to your current repeat prescription service. So if we follow that link, this is what we see directs them to the NHS app. But for you as a practice, you can go ahead and redirect them to your preferred app. All right, so going back to the settings page, if we scroll down a bit, the last option we see is turn on out of hours. So this is a really good option to toggle on here, and you can see mine is on because it's green. So with this will automatically come up for you when your practice is out of hours, and those out of hours times are automatic. This will appear during the following times: weekdays between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m., all day Saturday and Sunday, and on bank holidays. So instead of seeing just the form when the patients navigate to the patient triage website, they will instead see a pop-up that says, because of the time of day, there will be a delay before the GP reads a message. So important to note here that they can still submit a patient triage request, but we do try to let them know that there will be a delay before your response because you're out of hours. So there is an option to customize the text that appears at the top of the page for the patient in a yellow box, and you can do that here. Last thing I wanted to talk about here on this page is the option to temporarily disable patient triage. So for this, your patient will definitely still not be able to submit a request. So this is kind of like a last option for you if you do feel like you are overwhelmed, or for any other reason your staff is called in and you're short and you want to disable this feature. You can click this to toggle it on in green, and then we'll give you a couple drop downs here. The first is selecting the date that you will be re-enabling this. So for example, we can go ahead and click on Monday, the time that we'll re-enable it, and why we're disabling it for now. Once you click update, that will automatically turn on, and then will be re-enabled on your preferred date and time. All right, so I'll go ahead and pop back and kind of talk about the next different steps that we can take just to confirm that you are being able to roll this out across your practice. So after today's webinar, we definitely want you to be able to finalize your patient triage settings as I just covered. Another thing we like to do is manage your team notifications. So did kind of go over that in the actual inbox, but I can also go over it now on a practice level so you can get this set up. So what you'll do for that is you'll click on Manage Practice, and you'll scroll down to a section under your practice that says Manage Team Notifications. On the left, you see all of your users across your practice. On the right, as you scroll over, you can see in bold all the different teams in your practice. So the most important one is the To Assign. So this will be the folder, again, as I mentioned, where all of your patient triage requests will come into. So you'll want to mark these on for whoever is going to be monitoring your patient triage requests, for example, your reception team. From then, you'll manage the rest of your team here. For example, you would want anyone handling the prescriptions requests to be notified on that team level. After you've done those setup steps, what we do recommend is texting out your unique practice link to your patients so they can try it out. We really recommend starting with a small cohort of patients. So depending on your practice size, picking an age range of patients to start this out with, just so you can kind of get an idea of not only the types of requests that patients are submitting, but also kind of the volume of requests, and then finalize your workflow across your practice. So you can start out with this. We do have batch messaging available now as a part of accuRx Plus. If you don't have batch messaging, I would recommend using a couple other services. I know that practices have used iPlateau or NJOG as a batch messaging service to create a list of a cohort of patients. For example, in this example, it could be age range of 20 to 40, and going ahead and texting out that link to your patients to get an idea of what kind of requests you'll be getting in. And then steadily, as you feel comfortable managing those requests, you can increase to the top of your population. After you feel comfortable with that, you can update your website with your unique practice link. And that would be involving your IT team to make sure that your link is set up. We do have banners available on our patient triage resource page, which I highly recommend visiting. It's got some really nice steps for everything we covered in today's webinar and resource pages linking exactly how to do the steps we covered. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to contact our customer success team at customer.success@accuRx.com, and we'll be happy to help you with any other questions.